Mikel Arteta's new role with a global sports brand feels like more than a headline. It feels like the opening move in a chess game that could fundamentally alter how young players get from nowhere to notice. When a coach known for ruthlessly clear ideas about player development steps into a corporation's talent program, you have to treat it as an experiment with very real human stakes. Under Armour's "You Are Next" isn't a glossy advert, it's a promise of trials, training and a route back into the professional game for players who were told a no at 18, 19 or 20. Arteta's name on that promise changes the tone. Suddenly, elite tactical coaching is linked to corporate resources, and that connection can open doors clubs alone sometimes fail to unlock. Imagine youngsters who have been released drifting between semi-pros and hope suddenly being put through an intensive academy setup with experienced coaches, psychological support, and professional standard facilities. Imagine that inside knowledge, the eye for temperament, for the personality able to handle pressure, being applied not to a single club's shortlist, but to a whole cohort of players across a region. That is the scale people are talking about when they say opine. Why does scale matter? Because talent is not only about ability, it is about timing, opportunity, and the right platform at the right moment. A player who lacks that platform is often indistinguishable from a player who lacks ability. Arteta's involvement promises to change the variable of opportunity itself. He has repeatedly shown at club level how small, decisive chances can turn careers and seasons. If those instincts are deployed across UA Next trials and academies, the effect could be exponential. More second chances, more finely curated transitions back to pro environments, and a different relationship between commercial programs and club recruitment. But this experiment is not without its tensions. When a private brand builds its own talent pathway, questions arise about influence, fairness, and alignment with existing club systems. Will clubs see UA Next as a helpful feeder or as competition? Will young players be pushed into routes that prioritize branding over long-term development? The answers will depend on governance, transparency, and the networks Arteta and Under Armour build. The real test will be whether this becomes a supplement that surfaces overlooked players or a parallel system that reshuffles power around, who decides a young player's fate. On the ground, though, there's a human story that cuts through the structural debate, the faces of teenagers who have been told to move on. For them, the program promises coaching that recognizes personality as much as raw skill, and professional-level support that includes mental preparation, medical oversight, and exposure to scouts. Those are the practical building blocks of a career, not a tagline. Arteta's rhetoric about giving back and creating pathways is more than prey when you consider his track record of trusting younger players, handing them responsibility and watching them grow. That credibility is the currency that can convince parents, clubs, and players to trust a new route. If Under Armour supplies the scale and Arteta supplies the scouting philosophy, the combination could accelerate a new model. Private-public hybrid pathways that sit alongside club academies rather than trying to replace them. The stakes are practical and emotional. A successful UA Next would mean stories of late bloomers, rescued prospects, and the occasional star who would otherwise have been lost. It would also mean clubs rethinking recruitment, perhaps scouting deeper into these alternative pools. But if it fails, if corporate timelines and football's slow-moving structures clash, the program could be a brief splash that leaves legitimate questions about accountability. For viewers, the immediate takeaway is simple: watch this space. Arteta's name brings attention, but the outcomes will be visible in the players who step through the gates, in the careers that restart, and in whether the broader football ecosystem embraces a new route to the top. This isn't just a sponsorship, it's a test of whether a high-profile coach and a global brand can together create real, lasting pathways. And if they can, we may be watching the first steps in how the next generation of stars are found, trained, and launched.